Welcome, enlightened ones. Never let your cup get full. We will begin with AI's blind interpretation. Prepare to witness what the algorithms predict.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited to guide you through today's analysis. We are going to explore the profound psychological journey hidden right there within the lyrics of Tool's captivating track, Sweat, from their foundational Opiate album. Now, if you've ever listened to this track, you know it has a distinct, really heavy atmosphere. But when you strip away the music and look strictly at the text, an entirely new narrative arc emerges. It's literally a map of a mind descending straight into the subconscious. Whether you've personally experienced intense anxiety or you just love dissecting complex art, tracing this map step by step reveals a whole lot about how our minds handle sensory overload. Okay, let's dive into this. Right out of the gate, the text just hits us with a total barrage of verbs. I'm sweating and breathing and staring and thinking and sinking. Sounds a bit like waking up late on a Monday morning, right? These rapid-fire opening lines create an immediate, inescapable sense of intense sensory overload. It actually feels like the onset of a panic attack. The narrator isn't reflecting on this from a distance. No, they are thrusting us into a purely physical, visceral present moment where the body is reacting way, way before the mind can even catch up.
And that brings us to phase 1, the physical fever dream.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact trajectory of a panic state. Notice the progression of these 4 actions. We start right on the surface with step 1, sweating, which is a totally standard bodily reaction to heat or stress. But immediately, the verbs start to pull us downward. We move to sinking, then to swimming, and eventually slipping. We are linguistically tracking a downward psychological trajectory. The narrator is moving from the surface of reality to becoming completely submerged. It is a steady, absolutely relentless loss of grounding.
Moving on to section 2, hunter, fisherman, and thinker.
To really understand this overwhelming environment, we have to notice the archetypes being introduced. Beneath the burning sun, the lyrics explicitly mention these 3 very specific figures: the hunter, the fisherman, and the thinker. Now, these aren't just random professions. They establish different roles or maybe even fragmented identities for our narrator. Think about it. A hunter is aggressive and highly proactive. A fisherman is patient, totally at the mercy of the water. And a thinker? Well, a thinker is entirely internalized. The text is setting up this brilliant conflict between simply surviving in the physical world and getting completely lost in the internal one.
Which leads us to section 3, the shift in reality. This internal conflict brings us to a huge, pivotal turning point in the lyrics. In verse 1, the environment is just oppressive. The sun is burning hot again. But when we finally reach verse 2, the sun is setting cool again. We contrast the harsh, burning heat of the first verse with the cooling, dimming light of the second. And listen, this isn't just a simple passage of time. It signals a clear, undeniable shift in consciousness. It's like the fever is breaking, or actually, scratch that, it's more like the physical world is just fading away entirely.
Alongside the environment shifting, the narrator's identity completely shifts as well. In verse 1, the focus is totally external, acting as the hunter. But in verse 2, the narrator flat out declares, I'm a thinker. The aggressive external hunter becomes the internal introspective thinker. It marks a definitive retreat from the physical world. The narrator is no longer actively engaging with their surroundings. They are retreating deep inside their own mind.
But retreating into the mind is rarely peaceful, is it? The narrator admits, and I'm trying to remember when, but it makes me dizzy. The attempt to grasp onto memories, to find some sort of cognitive anchor in both verses, literally results in vertigo. The actual physical act of thinking is causing physical sickness. This dizziness acts as a super powerful catalyst, completely forcing the narrator out of their physical space.
Let's dive into section 4, slipping into the dream. So where exactly do they go when they're forced out of reality? The chorus begins with a feeling I think we all know pretty well. Seems like I've been here before. Seems so familiar. This is pure déjà vu, the illusion of having previously experienced a present situation. By bringing this psychological phenomenon right into the text, the lyrics show the narrator's mind really beginning to play tricks on them. Their grip on lineal time and concrete reality is totally loosening.
It's a profound moment of dissociation that anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed can easily recognize.
So the crucial point is this single critical phrase, into a dream within a dream. This confirms the complete break from reality. We aren't just sleeping anymore, we are entering a layered subconsciousness. The narrator has fallen so deeply inward that they are literally 2 layers removed from the waking world. It's an incredibly isolating, yet deeply fascinating mental landscape.
Let's fully solidify this pivot. Waking, physical reality is completely replaced by a psychological state. Just look at how this plays out. The sweating and breathing from earlier, they morph into thinking and dreaming. The burning hot sun is swapped out for the internal act of remembering, and physical dizziness gives way to the eerie familiarity of déjà vu. The lyrics definitively shift away from pure physical distress straight into deep, ungrounded psychological phenomena.
But wait, this brings up a massive question. What actually triggers this slip into a dream within a dream? Was it just the heat, the dizziness, or is there an external catalyst hiding in the text that actually pushes the narrator over the edge into this hypnotic state? Which brings us to the final phase, surrender, and the whisper. Now, what's really interesting about this part of the text is that to find that trigger, we have to look at the total surrender in the closing choruses, because suddenly there is another presence. It's the way you whisper. Up until now, the narrator has been completely alone in their fevered mind. Now, out of nowhere, there is a you, and this you doesn't shout, they whisper. A whisper requires closeness, it's intimate, it completely bypasses the conscious defenses, and it's this incredibly specific sound that ultimately pulls the narrator even further down. This final sequence of surrender maps out perfectly. Step 1 is somewhat passive. They are slipping into a dream. But then, prompted by that intimate whisper, it accelerates into step 2, drags me under. That is an aggressive, undeniable loss of control. The whisper becomes a literal force of gravity. Finally, step 3. It takes me home. The descent is complete. And the very structure of the lyrics enforces this hypnotic cycle. Verse 2 loops back, repeating those exact same physical symptoms of verse 1, the sweating, breathing, staring. Then, that mesmerizing chorus text repeats 3 full times at the end of the song. This heavy lyrical repetition creates a dizzying hypnotic effect for the reader or listener. It perfectly mirrors the narrator giving up their resistance and giving in completely to the dream. Which brings us to the final destination of the lyrics, takes me home. It leaves us with a truly compelling thought to chew on. After all the sweating, the sinking, and the dizziness, is being dragged under and taken home by a mysterious whisper a terrifying psychological defeat? Or is it a comforting, much-needed escape from the burning sun of reality? I'll leave that for you to decide. Keep analyzing, keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next explainer.
That was AI's blind interpretation. Will it hold up to an interpretation that is guided with notes and references? Do you believe that was fact or fiction? You decide.
Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something absolutely wild. We're going to take Tool's 1992 track, Sweat, and peel back the layers of the subconscious. Now, this isn't just a surface-level lyric reading, guys. We're looking at a massive, profound journey into existential anxiety, psychological boundaries, and even spiritual purification. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Just listen to the sheer disorientation in this chorus lyric. Seems like I'm slipping into a dream within a dream. I mean, right out of the gate, the song just throws you completely off balance. It's totally hypnotic. You immediately feel that loss of traction, right? That really eerie sensation of reality just kind of bending around you.
But that begs the question, what are we really slipping into? This whole track is honestly a psychological mystery that's just cleverly disguised as a heavy rock song. To truly get it, we've got to challenge ourselves to look way beyond the surface and start peeling back the layers.
So let's start with section 1, slipping into the sweat, the surface layer.
Sweating, breathing, staring, thinking, sinking, feeling totally dizzy as the burning sun beats down on the hunter and the fisherman. The lyrics just hit you with this breathless, repetitive cadence. You can literally feel the physical discomfort, the heat, the passive, creeping anxiety of your body reacting to an environment it just can't control. It's a total sensory overload. And right in the middle of that physical overload, we get this line. And it's almost like I'm swimming. This specific lyric is a huge deal. It introduces this crucial sinking deeper motif. We're moving from just standing in the sweltering heat to actively losing our footing. And this idea of sinking, that's going to anchor the entire rest of the song's thematic structure.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Edgar Allan Poe connection, exploring the mind and literature.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that the chorus of the song is actually a direct thematic and lyrical nod to Edgar Allan Poe. Way back in 1849, Poe published his iconic poem, A Dream Within a Dream. So this isn't just some random coincidence. It's a highly deliberate historical anchor that completely flips the context of the anxiety we just talked about in that first layer.
By bringing Poe into the mix, Tool is actively linking their early 90s sound to the 19th century dark romanticism movement. If you're not familiar, this is a literary subgenre that's all about human fallibility, intense grief, the relentless passage of time, and, most importantly for us here, the fragmentation of the self. So that underlying existential dread in the track is not just about feeling dizzy in the hot sun anymore. It's this profound historic anxiety about being fundamentally unable to grasp reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates the connection. On one hand, we see Tool's exploration of dissociation and déjà vu, that feeling of seems so familiar, and it runs perfectly parallel to Poe's fragmentation of the self. The historical weight of Poe's work takes a modern rock lyric and elevates it into a timeless exploration of eternal recurrence. It's literally that universal, centuries-old human panic of reality slipping right through our fingers.
But we're not stopping there. Section 3, the Sweat Lodge Ritual, diving into the spirit.
Remember that repetitive mantra we talked about earlier, the sweating and breathing? Well, that's heavily tied to the Native American sweat lodge, specifically the sacred Inapi ritual. This isn't just hanging out in a hot sauna, guys. It's a highly intentional, sacred purification rite. The whole goal is to intentionally induce spiritual epiphanies and completely purge the ego.
Let's walk through exactly how this works. First, you start with intense steam. Then you move into guided prayer. That leads directly into an intense state of sensory deprivation. And finally, that deprivation shatters your normal, everyday state of mind, which triggers the purging of the ego and a profound spiritual epiphany. It's amazing because the physical descriptions from the beginning of the song, the heat, the dizziness, the blinding sun, they suddenly transform. It's no longer passive panic. It's an active, highly structured spiritual process.
So the crucial point is right here, in this lyric. Drags me under, takes me home. Sinking deeper isn't just a metaphor for anxiety or losing control anymore. When you look at it through the lens of a ritual, sinking deeper is the requirement. It's the absolute prerequisite for reaching the pure subconscious. Being dragged under isn't some nightmare. It's literally the only way to get back to the core of who you are. It takes you home.
Which brings us to our final layer. Section 4. Evolving into Push It, looking at the core.
So, Sweat was originally released on the 1992 EP Opiate. But what's super cool is that musicologists often point out it acts as the definitive prequel. It's the thematic starting point for an incredible arc that wouldn't actually culminate until 4 years later on the 1996 album Anima, specifically in a legendary track called Push It.
Let's move to the comparison and see how this builds. In 1992's Sweat, the state is entirely internal and solitary, right? The main motif is slipping and sinking into the subconscious. But fast forward to 1996's Push It, and those exact same concepts of vulnerability and pressure just explode outward into a completely destructive interpersonal relationship. The psychological boundary pushing that was established in Sweat turns into literal, physical, and emotional combat in its sequel. Honestly, you kind of can't fully appreciate the relational conflict in Push It without understanding the internal groundwork that was laid down first in Sweat.
So let's synthesize this whole incredible journey. What started out looking like a simple list of physical symptoms, sweating and breathing, was actually a gateway. It pulled us through the existential terror of 19th century dark romanticism, it guided us right through the sacred sensory deprivation of a spiritual purification ritual, and ultimately, it taught us the vocabulary of our own psychological boundaries. Understanding these interconnected layers is absolutely crucial because it holds a mirror up to our own universal human experiences with anxiety, the ego, and the mind.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. The song strongly suggests that losing control is actually the only way to find your ultimate truth. So, if you were dragged under right now to face your own pure subconscious, completely stripped of your ego and your daily reality, what would you find? Would it be a dream within a dream? Or would you finally be home? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep peeling back the layers, and I'll catch you next time.
Every time you run off back into your cozy little world without hitting like or subscribe, I get a little closer to this.